All right, thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Our Lads Football Network, the OFN Meeting Room. We're talking Jacksonville Jaguars football. Finally, didn't get an opportunity to talk about the Jags before the draft, but we get an opportunity to do that now after the draft with John Osher, senior writer for Jaguars.com, who is calling outdoors live from Jacksonville. John, nice to talk to you.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. And a lot of guys in this Jaguars draft. So,
yes,
I don't know if it was the biggest class in the NFL, but it was the biggest class in franchise history. So, they're obviously thinking that this is a new generation for this team, a turning point, if you will. So, a lot of guys, and we can get to it.
All right, well, let's start at the top. And the team went with a couple of first-rounders. Pick number 9 was C.J. Henderson. And Henderson there's no question he has elite quarterback skills. There is a consistency issue with him, but overall definitely could have been the first cornerback pick. That's how much talent he has. But top 10 pick who runs a 4.39. There's a lot of expectations for him as maybe the next shutdown corner now that Jalen Ramsey's gone.
Yeah, and this was really one where they knew they weren't going to be able to circle back at number 20 and get him.
Yep.
They liked both Chason, who they got at number 20. They liked Chason as high as this, but they knew from looking at other teams' needs, the book on Chason around the league, he had a better chance of being available at 20.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they felt like early on in the draft, they needed to go corner. They needed to go edge rusher. They needed to go wide receiver and defensive tackle somewhere in there as a matter of prioritizing those. This was the best player available at those spots. I think if Derek Brown had been here, maybe he's a guy. But because he was gone,
okay,
C.J. Henderson, they felt, was the most premium talent. And it gave them, if you think about their defense, they have Josh Allen on the front, Unique Ngakoue on the front, Miles Jack at linebacker. But they really didn't have a prime player, a prime elite talent in that back four right now.
Yep.
This gives them that guy.
Speaking of Ngakoue, what is the latest? I might as well ask you. I'm sure Jaguar fans watching, listening would want to know. So what's the latest?
Well, General Manager Dave Caldwell said on draft night, meaning Thursday night of the draft, round 1, that they'll welcome him back. They hadn't been able to get the trade offer that was reported out there, but they didn't get a trade offer for him. That severely, obviously, limits the possibility of moving him.
Yep.
This offseason. If it doesn't happen before the draft, it's going to be hard to do it now. It didn't sound, and it doesn't sound like from talking to people, that they think they're going to be able to move him. There's been obviously a lot of talk from Ngakoue on Twitter how he wants to be traded. But right now it looks like if he plays, it's going to be for the Jaguars. They're of the opinion that will happen. They're of the opinion that they'll welcome him back. So it's a stay tuned situation, and I anticipate it going for a long time. Up until training camp, maybe up until the season. We'll see.
Okay. With pick number 20, K'Lavon Chaisson, the pass rush specialist from LSU, or at least that's what we believe he could be there for.
Sure.
But he's got incredible tools. Matter of fact, Our Lads, inside the guide, I took a little excerpt there, is still a work in progress, but has the size, length, and tools of an elite outside linebacker prospect.
Well, yeah, and like so many, if you're going to take a pass rusher outside the top 5, top 7, there's going to be some projection involved, because if you're a can't miss, Josh Allen last year for this team is considered can't miss elite.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, you're surprised he slipped to 7. So there's going to be some questions if you take him at 20, but the upside on this guy, they really believed, I think the core of their pick, he was coming off of an ACL, I believe it was 2018. He got better in 2019 once he got really past that. So they believe that his upside is going strong right now. They believe he's continuing to get better, and that what he showed at the end of last season is what he's going to continue to show and progress. So that's their book on him. That's their thought, and they feel like they've got a really elite bookend pass rush, Allen, Chaisson, and then whatever happens with Unique Ngakoue.
Absolutely. That's what you need. It makes the other players better, no question about it. And he's only started 1 year in college, and the injury had a lot to do with it. So he has.
Yeah, it's all upside.
Yeah,
no doubt.
absolutely. And if he gets the right coaching, then watch out. Laviska Shenault was the second-round pick, the wide receiver. And I was a big Chenault fan, especially a couple years ago before the injury. That year that he got hurt, uh, I was campaigning for him to be one of the top players at the Heisman ceremony. That's how good Laviska Shenault was before the injury. I mean, a playmaker. Every time he touched the ball, whether it was on handoffs or receiving, whatever the case may be, the guy was just an electrifying playmaker. And even though he only ran a 4.58, which is the reason why he lasted as long as he did, some players, that's just, especially receivers and playmakers, they're just, maybe they don't time fast, but you get them on the field with the ball in their hands, and that's all that matters. And Chenault, to stay healthy, could be a huge addition to this team.
Yeah, some of that time, his side of that when he was drafted on the conference call was he was still coming back from a little bit of the injury. He thinks he's faster than that. Of course, most players think they're faster than what their time is. But if he's what you saw when he was in 2018, then he's absolutely a player that this team has never had, or it's been a long time since this team has had a receiver like that in terms of the game-breaking ability, the tackle-breaking ability. They think that they got an absolute steal. They had him after 2018. I am getting the dates right, as one of the top receivers,
Absolutely.
top 10, top 15 pick type guy. So if the injury didn't take that away, then all of a sudden they've got a steal, and they think they got one here. So all teams think that, but all the evidence lines up with maybe this is a steal. To go opposite DJ Chark, if you put this kid in what he was, DJ Chark, then all of a sudden the receiver problem, it's been a problem for a long time around here. All of a sudden that may be solved, and you've got some dynamic.
That could be. Let's talk about the third-round pick, Devon Hamilton from Ohio State. Now, he was only a one-year starter because that Ohio State front line was just so talented. He had to wait his turn. And when he finally got an opportunity to play his final year, he showed how good he could be at the next level. 10.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. He's a big, long, thick player that has an NFL-sized body already.
Yeah, and one thing they liked about him, he had to wait a long time in college to get his shot.
Yep.
Sometimes talented guys like this and guys who come in and expect to be playing, when they don't get that, maybe they lose their way a little bit and never really take advantage of it.
Or they want to transfer.
Right. Or just sort of lose momentum in things, and he really didn't. And they feel like, again, the same sort of story as Chase on in the first round, that this is a guy who, as he continues to play, he's only going to get better because he's only scratching the surface. So that's what all teams say about draft picks like this. But he certainly has what they need in terms of, this team was horrible against the run last year. They gave up, the defining point of their season was they gave up 200 yards rushing a game 5 times. And they slide from 4-4 to 4-9, where they gave up 200 yards rushing in 4 of those games. Well, that clearly defined their season. They knew they had to get better against the run. I thought it would happen early in the draft. It happened here. So this guy's a key to their draft, maybe as much as any of the top 3 guys, in terms of what happens next year.
Let's go with the 4th round. There were 3 picks. Let's start with the Division III kid, Ben Barch from St. John's, Minnesota. Now, interesting story. This kid was a track athlete in high school and then developed his body into a tight end football player and played tight end for a couple of years and then moved over to the offensive line, tackle. He's projected to move inside the guard. He's not going to play right away. You just can't play right away from Division III to the NFL, but his athleticism is so inviting at the next level that I got to believe that the coaches are salivating to get this kid in camp.
Yeah, and it's fine for this team if he doesn't play right away. Although their offensive line has been criticized from the outside, they believe in their 5 starters, and they believe they've got a little bit of depth, as much depth as anybody has in the NFL these days on the line. They believe they've got guys who can go in. Barch is very much, they don't think he's a starter this year. They absolutely think he's a starting guy, and they draft with the idea that their 4th rounders will be starters. So at some point, this guy is going to start. They're not sure if it's tackle or guard yet, but everything you hear about him is all upside. He particularly excelled at the Senior Bowl, which helped his cause a great deal. Coming from Division III, if he hadn't excelled there, he probably doesn't get drafted. So he showed up. It's still a different leap into the NFL when you're dealing with grown men every day. But they like him as a guy who can significantly help an offensive line that has struggled, but it won't be obviously until 2021.
Yeah, and he's a 4th-round grade too. So it wasn't like they overdrafted the kid. For a Division III player to get a 4th-round grade, to get drafted in the 4th round, just shows you the kind of potential he has.
No doubt.
Okay, let's go to Josiah Scott. Oh, but you know what? Before we move on, I want to ask you about Cam Robinson since we were on the offensive line. So the idea is Robinson will play left tackle again for the Jags. And is there like a timetable on whether the Jags feel that this is the position for Cam, or is there a possibility he may one day move inside?
Well, he's a free agent after 2020, so the timetable's now.
Yep.
And they'll play him at left tackle. He's the guy who will start there. There's really not – I would say they have backups, but he's the guy who projects to start, and it's a big year for him. If he doesn't perform, I'm not sure he's around because they haven't re-signed him. They haven't had any urgency to do a contract on that level. It's a huge year for him. They believe, or they're counting on him being a lot better. He missed 14 games in 2018 with an ACL. So they believe this second year back, a year removed, the whole thing with the ACL is it's your best second year. They believe that had a lot to do with last year, and they liked how he was coming along. He had flaws. He's got to improve. They liked how he was coming along, but it's a mammoth year for him in his future.
Okay, let's get to that second 4th-round pick, Josiah Scott, who has 4.4 speed, but he does have some size limitations. And does that mean that chances are he's going to end up in the slot?
Probably, but that's probably okay. They like Trey Herndon on one side. They have DJ Hayden in the slot, who they love, who they consider one of the top slot corners. So he's the veteran who'll play there now. You would think Scott's a special teams guy at first. Obviously, 4th rounders, that's usually what they are. So you would think that he's that, and then you determine next year if he's ready to take Hayden's place at some point in the slot. But you would think that's what he is. But there's also a little bit of talk. He plays bigger than he actually is. He's a guy they like. They're not ruling out him on the outside at some point, but he's got to prove that.
Yeah, when you're a 3-year starter and you play in the Big Ten, one of the best conferences in college football, and you're one of their top corners, which he has been the last couple of years for a very tough defensive program, you have ability. So it doesn't matter you're 5'9" or not, they'll find a spot for him.
Right. If nothing else, he's a slot who can play special teams.
Okay, and then the third 4th-round pick was Shaquille Quarterman, another player at a top conference with a lot of experience, even more experience, 4-year starter at Miami, a 3-time All-ACC, 2-time first team the last couple of years. He is considered, at least at our lads, a 2-down, kind of middle linebacker prospect that's going to be there to stop the run first and foremost. And as you said, maybe start off on special teams as well.
Yeah, and interior linebackers, which he is, 2-down guys, this is about where they get drafted because you're probably not going to draft a guy that you expect to be a 2-down player much higher than this. He's everything you want. He's an alpha dog, all that stuff that you want. He's what you would think of as a Miami guy, the prototype, that cliche. The question is, can he play 3 downs? Can he come in and translate it? What he's got that the Jaguars always like at linebacker, mega college production, as you said, 4-year starter. I think he's the only guy ever to start 52 games at Miami and never miss a start. So that's a big list to come from a lot of great players. He can produce. It's just a matter of whether the skills translate to the NFL. Can he do 3 downs? Can he cover and all that? But he's one of these guys, when you talk to him, if he doesn't succeed, it won't be because he doesn't do things the right way. It'll just be a matter, can he translate to the NFL or not? He's everything you would want in a 4th-round draft pick, the right guy to take a chance on, all that. And we'll see what defense they're going to be playing. If they go 3-4 moving forward, you could potentially see him being one of the interior linebackers, probably not this year, but as time goes on, and they seem to be trending toward 3-4 with their personnel.
Let's go to the 5th round, and there were 2 picks. Talk a little bit about Daniel Thomas, the safety from Auburn. He was chosen with that first of 2 picks, and our lads probably had him a little bit lower down, but why did the team like Thomas in the 5th round?
Well, they need they have Ronnie Harrison and Gerard Wilson at safety right now. They're okay at safety right there, but this is a situation where they've lost a lot of players in the secondary over the last couple of years. They need depth. They need a guy who can potentially come in and take one of those spots at some point. Realistically, with a lot of these guys we're talking about the rest of the way, with all 12 of these, they're special teams to start off with the potential to see how they develop. They like a lot of things about him. They like his athleticism, leadership, all those things. This was a high character draft class. So they love that. It's just a matter how he adapts, which is going to be a question for a lot of these guys with no training camp, with no off season. You're probably talking a longer time to evaluate, especially the lower round guys.
Well, another lower round guy, the 2nd, 5th round pick, Colin Johnson from Texas, he broke out to me right away as a freshman. I saw him play in that USC rematch game, and I was taken back by some of the plays he was making for his size too. And I figured, wow, this guy's going to have a tremendous career. The career didn't equate as well as I thought it would. He's had some good partners alongside him, but this is a big guy. I mean, great size, power forward type body, good route runner. I still think the best might be ahead for Colin Johnson. This could end up being a steal for the Jags.
Yeah, and it's sort of your classic late round. When you're drafting a guy there, teams are looking for some trait that makes them believe that he can make it. They're not going to be perfect prospects because they'd be going in the first round and second round. So they clearly liked his size, the ability to win one-on-one, the ability to win in the red zone. He's got that stuff if he can package enough with it to be on the field to make those situations occur. So they like him. They think that by working with Keenan McCardell, who's a very good coach, a very good route running coach, that fits. I know Keenan loves the guy. So all those things are what makes them optimistic that he can do it. If he works out, then all of a sudden you're talking about packaging Chenault with DJ Chark. All of a sudden, what has been a wide receiver core that is looking for long-term guys who are going to be around and produce and consistency. All of a sudden that becomes that. Again, I wouldn't expect major contribution from him this year because I believe Chenault, Chark, D.D. Westbrook, and Chris Conley feel like they're 4 with Keelan Cole also pretty good. So those feel like the 4. How can Colin Johnson make his way into that by a second?
And look, DJ Chark needed a year. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Prime example. And they believe wide receivers they believe in that path and they have faith in that path. They hope for success from the first year, but realistically 2021.
Okay, in the 6th round, the first of the 2 picks was Jake Luton, the quarterback from Oregon State, another big kid, a couple of years starting there. And Oregon State was probably a play or 2 away. Really, they were a play away from getting to a bowl this year. It was an incredible story that they almost made it to a bowl this year. And Luton was their quarterback. So what are his chances of either making the team or at least a practice squad the first year?
Well, I would say he's definitely one of them. I would lean toward practice squad because they haven't traditionally carried 3, except when they felt like they had to keep the guy on the roster. You wouldn't think Luton would do that. They kept quarterback in the practice squad 2 years ago, and a name has escaped me because we've gone over so many names. But Tanner Lee. But they're willing to keep that on the practice squad. They're willing to take that chance. Realistically, he's not going to beat out Minshew. No. Realistically, they don't want him to play this year. But he's got a little bit of the traits of Minshew in the sense that he's a 5 or 6 year college guy. He's played a lot. He's been at 3 different programs, which they liked about Minshew last year because he was able to come in and grasp things very quickly. You tend to be more mature when you've been through that sort of thing in college. All those things Minshew had, it really helped him last year. But realistically, as you know, 6th round quarterback, it's a flyer. You hope that you get him in, and something that you saw develop. He's prototype size. He's got a nice motion from what they tell me, or they like that from what they tell me. So there's a couple of those traits, and then you bring him in and you see what he can give you. Can he learn in the classroom? Does he look the part on the field? A couple preseason games, and you figure out a little bit more about what you've got. But this is sort of a hope pick. And in the last few drafts, they're starting to take the approach, we're going to draft a quarterback somewhere every year and not ignore that position. And that's
a good idea. Okay, let's wrap up the picks with Tyler Davis, the Georgia Tech tight end, in the 6th round, and Chris Claybrooks, the corner from Memphis, in the 7th round. Either one of these guys stand out for any particular reason, or just guys that it's a crapshoot again this late in the draft, and you hope that maybe one of these guys turns into something?
Well, there's always an element of that with this late in the draft, although the theme for David Caldwell, the general manager, was they wanted to keep all 12 of these picks. This is exactly the number they went in with. They did not make a trade. Everybody thought they'd make a trade. You got all these picks, move up 5 spots in round 2. They loved the depth of the draft. They wanted 12 guys. So I think all of these guys are either on practice squad or on the roster. The tight end they like because they need tight end. They've been trying to build their tight end room. It hasn't worked for a couple of years. They like his potential. I talked to Ron Middleton actually this morning, the tight ends coach. He loves the guy. He thinks he's got a lot of potential. He says his football IQ is as high as any tight end that he interviewed in the draft this year at the combine. So that part of him, that gives him a shot. I can't realistically sit here and tell you what kind of chance he actually has because he's a 6th round pick. But that trait, it leads me to believe that that's a position, tight end, as you well know, over the years, 6th and 7th round guys make it at that spot. So I'd be surprised if he's not around, and he'll probably get to 2021 to really show what he can do in this offense. But they like him.
Okay. Before we go into a couple of players I want to add into the pool as far as the free agents, the rookie free agents that were signed, I just want to remind everybody that we've got the Ourlads draft guide here, so you can pick up the draft guide at ourlads.com. It's still a great time to pick up the guide because this is, if you're a Jaguar fan and you want to know about all these players, a lot of profiles in this draft guide. So a lot of research. It's a perfect time of the year with not a lot of sporting events going on. The draft review guide will be coming out soon as well. And don't forget also to subscribe to our YouTube channel here on the Prime Sports Network. Okay, let's get to, now there were 3 intriguing signings. I want to start with James Robinson, because this was a surprise that actually, if you think about it, both Robinson and J.R. Reed were 4th round graded players that the Jags picked up without using a pick. But Robinson, I mean, you're talking about a kid who had over 9,000 yards rushing in high school, over 5,200 all-purpose yards at the FCS level with Illinois State. And there's a lot to like about him because of he's a little short, but he's stocky. He's got big, thick thighs, jackhammer thighs, as our lads pointed out. And he even produced a couple of big plays in the Shrine Bowl when he was asked to play step up in competition. So, yeah, I was a little surprised. But then again, running backs slip sometimes like this, and they end up having long careers in the NFL. So I wouldn't be surprised if James Robinson found a home.
Yeah, it's so hard to predict. And as you guys know, you do this all the time, projecting guys. It's so hard to project a free agent making it and being a star. It's always a long shot. But he has those earmarks, and with this team, he has opportunity. There was talk before the draft about trading Leonard Fournette. That didn't happen. He's going to be the starter. But a lot of people thought that they would go 4th round, 5th round at the position because there really isn't that make-you-miss guy. There seems to be a hole in the running back room that somebody can come in and fill. So clearly that's what appealed to Robinson about this place. A lot of these high-priority free agents have their choice once the draft ends. That's what appeals here. He will definitely have the opportunity. There will not be a closed door for him to make the team. And it makes sense that he could make this team. And, who knows, Arian Foster, maybe.
By the way, Fournette, was there a specific reason why there were rumors about him being traded?
Well, I think it was more that during the months leading to the draft, meaning March, April, they had traded Calais Campbell, they had traded A.J. Boye, they had traded Nick Foles. So there was a thought on the team that if you can get value for a veteran player, that this was the time to do it. So I think Fournette fell into that. But in terms of will he fit going forward and all that, he's the starting running back. He's the guy. He's very important to what they're doing. So I think any talk, whatever legitimacy there was to it, I think is in the past from what I understand.
The other player I mentioned, J.R. Reed, is a first-team All-American this past year for Georgia, one of the top programs in the country. And he's just a very smart, consistent football player. Now, maybe he doesn't make the type of wow plays that you're looking for, which is possibly why he lasted as a free agent. But this is a player that has a chance. Definitely. I think Jags fans need to keep an eye on him.
Well, and you at Orlads, in terms of scouting these guys, probably know more about why he didn't get drafted, the details, the granular of that. I can tell you that on this team, safety position is not a team that's so overloaded with frontline guys that he won't have a chance to make it. Again, it feels just like with Robinson. It feels like the agent and the player looked at it and said, okay, what teams will I have a good shot with? The Jaguars are certainly that. There is room for a guy to come in and come out of nowhere at that spot. As you said, he's a combine guy. Meaning he went to the combine, 4th-round grade. It would be a little surprising. They kept a free agent safety last year, Andrew Wingard. It's a spot where free agents make teams. Certainly seems like J.R. Reed could do that.
And then finally, Luke Barku, the San Diego State kid, he's a JC transfer. 1 year, just broke out with the Aztecs, 9 interceptions and 18 pass breakups. So I can see, though, why he would be considered a 7th round or a free agent. But, hey, you produce like that, it means there's potential for upside. He's your perfect developmental prospect that you bring into a team and hope that you strike lightning a couple years down the road.
Well, as you said, it's a perfect spot because you're a corner. You can play special teams. You can earn your keep, so to speak, while you're being developed. So he produced. You could see why he went under the radar because he didn't produce until late.
Yes.
He makes sense. The other guy, any free agent's a long shot, but he's a long shot with a, I guess, a chance to take a swing at it and make it.
What was, before I let you go, John, how did the fans take to the draft, whether it was the process or the players in general, just from what you were able to hear in the area? Because I'm sure, just like ratings were a bonanza, so I'm sure the fans loved it anyway. It was something to watch, but in general for their team, how did they react?
When a team misses the playoffs 2 years in a row, there becomes a situation where the team can't do anything right.
Yep.
So there were certainly fans who, this was this, this was this. But I think fans who looked at it could grasp that this was a draft where they went after need. They didn't go after a quarterback because the fans here love Minshew, so they were happy with that. They're happy that he's getting a shot. So overall, I have a saying, fans are going to fan. They're never going to like that much. So I think a lot of them who really studied it understood what they were doing. Beyond that, it got the same criticism, the same same praise and the same criticism, none of which means that much. So, fans are going to fan. That's what I always say.
I think your dog has to go for a walk, John. What do you think?
It's
time?
Yeah, and she was fine until my son just drove up. So
that's what it is. Okay, good timing.
I'm not expecting him home till later. I'll get in a secluded spot for our next
That's all right, John. I appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you before we find out whenever training camp begins.
Well, I can't wait for that.
We all can't. Yes. Thanks, John.
All right.